Hello, everyone. Good morning to the folks in the US and good afternoon to people in Europe. If you're there, I see some people are here. That's good. Um, Grateful that you're here. I'm writing solo today on this webinar. And I'm excited we have some good content today. I have 0 slides. We're doing a no slides webinar. I'm just going to share my screen and walk through a few things. But if you can hear me and you're out there, chime in on chat. I got some people chiming in. Awesome. So today we are talking, it's a bit of a follow-up to a webinar we had a few weeks ago, but it's going to be more specific on a use case that I'm talking about, which is using the new Domotz MCP server to create custom reports. If you were on the previous webinar, or if you've just used the MCP server since we launched it a few weeks ago, let me know. I'm curious to hear how people are using it, what value they've seen so far. I think some feedback we've received is that it's a very new way of working. It's kind of there's a lot you can do with it. It's almost like paralyzing in the sense that there's so much you could do with it. And I totally understand that, which is why we wanted to do this webinar. And I'm sure we'll do others as well in the near future where we'll walk through specific use cases and things you can actually build with the MCP server. So I'm excited for this webinar because we're going to spend it just drilling down into a specific use case, which is creating custom reports. So if you found another good use case since the launch, I would love to hear it. So chime in on chat and let me know. If you're new to Domotz webinars, you might not know this, but we stream our webinars to all of the Domotz social channels, including our YouTube channel. So if you want to review this recording after the fact, you can on the Domotz YouTube channel, and it'll be live immediately at the conclusion of this webinar. Okay, we got Michael chiming in. He's been building alerts and dashboards for the most part. Still working on it. All right, I'm excited about this one because I know this is going to be a really powerful use case. And while I introduce this a little bit more before we dive into showing how to build it, I'm curious if you're attending, just put in chat whether you are working at an MSP, if you are, or if you're working in an internal IT department or an integrator or something else. I'm curious to get hear from you and what kind of business you're operating in, because I think that'll help me tailor the webinar a little bit to make sure it's as relevant as possible for you. And also, because this is a more casual webinar, no slide webinar, I would love for you to all chime in. And if there's anything you want to drill into, I want to make sure you're getting the most out of this webinar. I don't want to just be speaking to you the whole time. So, all right, we got people chiming in, a lot of MSPs here, a few others as well. It's Jeff, you're asking, haven't looked into the MCP server yet, but was wondering if it's something that we put on our own server, if it's hosted by Domotz. It is hosted by Domotz, and I'll show you how to connect here really quickly as well. Okay, let me share a quick story here before we get started. So before working at Domotz, I worked at a few companies, but one of them was an MSP. And I worked at an MSP for about 5 years before I joined the dark side of working for vendors that sell to MSPs. And in this role, I'm gonna tell a story. I hope you can't relate to it, but chances are, if you work for an MSP, you probably can relate. And we had a customer that churned at one point, and they were a customer that had been with us for a long time, was a high value customer, and they churned. And they didn't churn because we weren't delivering good service. We were providing the same high quality level of service we'd provided for years for this business. But they churned because they started asking questions like, what are we even paying for? What is this business, this MSP doing for us? And again, it wasn't because we weren't doing anything. It was because we weren't doing a good job showing or demonstrating what we were actually doing for that business. And it highlights a big problem that a lot of MSPs, but also if you're in internal IT or if you're an integrator, it's true for across the board, which is, how do you demonstrate the value of the services that you are providing, whether that's to your customers or some sort of internal stakeholder? It's an important thing that we all need to be thinking about. And in IT especially, there is this kind of perception, which is, if you're not hearing from IT or if you're not getting news from IT, it's kind of good news. And some people get that, but a lot of people don't. And if you're not hearing from IT, they start questioning, like in my story at the beginning, well, are they doing anything? Or are they just kind of sitting on their hands there? So as IT practitioners, we have to really I think it's maybe almost not natural, but we have to push ourselves into this place where we are evangelizing the work that we're doing and we're sharing about it more publicly. So that way we can demonstrate the value that we're providing. And sometimes it can be uncomfortable, but it's super, super important. So, that's what we're going to talk through today. How do you do that? And specifically, how do you do that with AI? And whenever you say the words AI, it evokes a lot of emotions, positive and negative for a lot of people. And I just want to share my quick perspective on that, which is I think that just saying use AI just generally, uh, okay, what does that actually mean in practice? There's literally Fortune 500 companies right now that are mandating the usage of AI tokens as a KPI for personal, like individual contributors. And if you're not using a certain number of tokens, you get disciplined for that, basically. In my perspective, AI is a means to an end, and especially in the application for MSPs or for your attendees, the attendees that are here today, for your use cases, you have to not get sucked into the AI tunnel, and you have to stay focused on the problem that you're trying to solve. AI is a means to the end, and the end should be some revenue driving activity or some retaining of customers or more efficient workflows in your organization. So it's best not to start with AI. Like, don't think about AI models or anything like that. Think about a problem that you're trying to solve. And reporting is a great use case, because good customer reporting or good, internal reporting, like I shared about the one in the beginning, could have maybe preserved that customer. I think maybe, and I think probably would have kept that customer from churning. So it can become, custom reporting can become a super powerful tool for businesses. And it becomes even more powerful when you can layer in additional tools on top of, like combine multiple tools into a report, which is what we're going to demonstrate today. So let's talk about the evolution of custom reporting, because there's a lot of different ways that you can do it. And let's start with something that you might have all seen before, especially if you're a Domotz customer. Let me screen share here. Okay, let's do it this way. All right, so if you have with the different tools in your tech stack, chances are most of them have some sort of native reporting functionality. And this is Domotz's native reporting functionality. You can go into any collector and you can see information about the site and some performance on the network and the classification of devices and device uptime for the important devices that you've tagged, important devices that are offline, as well as just kind of a complete inventory of all the devices you've tagged as important. Is this helpful? Yes, it can be. But you have to keep in mind that vendors have to keep their reports rather general because there's a million different use cases for it. So it's unlikely to solve unique use cases for your business. And the other kind of obvious problems with this type of report is that it's not customizable. And especially if you're an MSP or an integrator, you don't want to be sharing reports from Domotz. You want to be sharing reports from your business. And really, this only tells half the story. It's showing information from the technology, but it doesn't layer on top of that the work that your technicians are doing. So it's not a complete kind of equation. So can this be helpful? Maybe, depending on your use case, but not quite, sophisticated and personalized, and not near the level of kind of wow factor that we're going to get to later in this webinar. So another option that we hear about often is setting up some sort of sophisticated custom reporting system. And I'm guessing that people in this webinar have done this. They could use it. You could use a tool like Grafana or Power BI or Tableau. And I've seen some really cool information on, or really cool use cases of those different tools for applications for MSPs and IT teams, et cetera. It can be really powerful, especially for internal use if you're getting into the metrics and you want to connect multiple data sources. But there's issues with this as well. One of them, especially if you're an MSP, is that multi-tenancy isn't native. So that can be very difficult to manage across multiple customers. Billing can also get very complicated with this type of setup, depending on the licensing that you need. It's also very steep if you're not technical. There's like 50 plus report options, and then how do you build them from scratch, and then how do you connect multiple data sources to it can be difficult, especially if you haven't done it before. And then it doesn't really solve the problem, which I talked about with this first example, which was how do you kind of layer on your custom branding on top of that? That's also very difficult to do with those tools. So can it be helpful? Similar to the first one, yes, it can be, depending on your use case. But if you're wanting to produce a report for some sort of external stakeholder or even an internal stakeholder, there's definite shortcomings here. So the third, and as I would argue, the best option you have is what we're going to demonstrate today, which is how do you create your own system for custom reporting with AI and with your own brand, and do it in a way that's personalized to show what matters most to your stakeholders that you're distributing the reports to. Okay, so having said that, let me pull this out of here. Let's kind of let's start diving into the demo here. Let me just check if I'm missing any comments from anyone. Got some good participation. All right. Let's talk about this example use case. So let's go circle back to the problem. We're trying to demonstrate the value of your services to your stakeholders. Okay. So how are we going to do that? One thing, especially if you're on this webinar, I'd hope so, but if not, then maybe you should. One thing that you're likely doing is some sort of monitoring or management of network performance. So you would want to, I'm going to demonstrate how you would incorporate that into a custom report, but then we'll talk through how do you expand that to other tooling in your tech stack, et cetera. So let's say you want to create a report and network monitoring and management metrics are going to be part of that report. So how do you get the data to put into the report? And there's a few ways. The worst way, I'm going to do like a bad, fine, best options. The kind of bad way, I would say, would be logging into your tool, like Domotz in this example, and finding the data that you need, exporting that data, and then importing it into, even if you're just importing it into AI, that's still a very manual process. So you want to avoid that. So how do you do that programmatically? There's a few options. The better way would be via APIs. This is not the best way, but this is another option you can do to surface the data programmatically to your AI. And with APIs, you need to kind of use the local version of your LLM. So in this case, you can see I have the Claude desktop application pulled up. And once I have the Claude desktop application pulled up, there's a file on my local machine that I can add API keys. And it's all stored locally, not in the cloud or anything. And your LLM can call upon that API for certain actions. So is it programmatic? Yes, because it can now pull those API endpoints and it can integrate those into a report. The problem with this, though, is that every API is very different. The documentation's different, the authentication's different, and direct API to LLM connections have some issues. They're not the highest performing, it's not the highest performing setup that you can have. So don't get me wrong, in my local adoption of LLMs, I have many APIs connected to my local kind of setup because that's the best that some of these vendors, like some of these vendors haven't arrived at a place where they have a native MCP server where it's a more intuitive connection. So it is a good option, but it's not the best option. And the biggest kind of fallback to connecting APIs is that it can drain your tokens pretty significantly because the LLM has to, even if you supply it the documentation, it still has to guess kind of which API endpoints it needs to pull. So it ends up being rather inefficient and can increase your spend for the LLM. But again, it is good in the sense that it gets you the data programmatically. So what's the best option? The best option is an MCP server, because the MCP server, if you're unfamiliar, is a standard protocol. It's called the Model Context Protocol, and it sits between your APIs and your LLM that you're using, and it translates those APIs into a language that the LLM understands, basically. And allows the LLM to operate that external piece of software and query the data and perform actions. So if you're just using Claude kind of on its own in a conversation, it can't really reach into your network monitoring account, like into your Domotz account. because it lives behind the APIs and has its own rules. But the MCP server sits in the middle and exposes those services, those APIs, to Claude or whatever LLM you're using in a way that it knows how to use. So this will make sense in a second. Let me first show how do you connect to MCP server, and then we just released ours 2 or 3 weeks ago, and so I'll show you this. But if this is agnostic in the sense that you could do this with any vendor that has an MCP server. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to click customize here, and it's going to take me to this kind of connectors section. And from here, you can see I can click plus and I can browse the Claude connectors library where they have, all their kind of approved MCPs. If you're looking for MCPs in your tech stack that exist, they might not be in the Anthropic or the Claude library, but I would search out the different vendors, help articles and things like that to see if you could find how to configure it, because oftentimes Anthropic is slow in their review of approving MCPs, and there's some sort of manual connection, which is what we have at Domotz here. You can see custom next to it. Anyway, so I've gone on and I clicked add custom connector, and all of this, we don't even need this. You just name it Domotz, and then you put in the MCP server URL, which exists in our help center. And then I already authenticated it, so it shows that I'm already connected, which is the authentication process is the same as if I was logging onto the web application. So now that I'm connected, you can see all the different tools that I have available. There's 40 read tools and there's 19 write tools. And I'm not going to go through each one of these because I encourage you to do it on your own. But it's rather sophisticated. There's a lot of information you can pull into a report that would be valuable for your customers. So now that you're connected, let's go back and start a chat. I'm going to just demonstrate that this is working. And because the MCP is connected and because it's through, because Domotz is connected and because it's through an MCP server, the LLM is going to know exactly what command it needs to call to answer my question related to that. So you can now see that I have 4 sites deployed. One of them is offline, and it gives some generic information about the site. Okay, now I'm going to paste in a prompt here because I didn't want to just type it so while you all are just watching me. But I'm going to keep it pretty simple and show you can be much more sophisticated than what I'm about to demonstrate. But I'm just going to, for simplicity's sake, show you something that's rather simple. So anyway, I've said, here's my sites. Now I'm responding. I'm just going to say I'm an MSP, and each one of the sites above represent a unique customer of mine. I want to create a monthly PDF report that demonstrates the value of my services by sharing key metrics associated with the performance of each customer's network derived from the Domotz MCP. Let's start creating a template which can be used every month and populated with that month's data. Look, and then I'm just I'm not really articulating exactly what I want in this report because I'm just kind of going to allow the LLM to take a best kind of a stab at it before I provide feedback. So I'm just saying, hey, looking at the tools and data that's available via the MCP server, create a report for this site. Okay, so I'm going to send that. And I'm not going to just wait here because this can take a few minutes and I want to show you quite a few things. So let me pull in here what it created the first time I ran this. Again, keep in mind, I didn't specify what to include, what metrics to include. I just said, I'm an MSP. With your knowledge, the LLM, with your knowledge of what you know about MSPs and customers, just take a stab at it with the tools that I have connected via Domotz. So this is its stab at it. And already you can see it's not bad. I mean, there's as you scroll through, there's gonna be things that you're like, yeah, that's not right. I don't want that in there. But let's just kind of review what it produced. So it produced a 4-page report, called it the Network Health Report, kept the branding generic because I didn't provide any information on the branding, and then created a short executive summary, providing some information on uptime. Don't have any alerts configured for this site, so this is something that I'd want to spend some time and make sure that this is actually connected the right way, or maybe remove this section completely. And then provide some information about classification of devices, the network infrastructure health, upload download speed, security posture, and a summation of the value delivered during this period. Okay, so this is the most important part because you want to customize this and you want to make it as relevant as possible for your stakeholders that you're delivering this to. So I would say in terms of creating the system, this is where you're wanting to spend the most amount of time. You know your customers or your stakeholders the best and you know what they care about. And so spend a lot of time here making sure that the data that's showing here is valuable, it's relevant, and it demonstrates the value that you're providing for your stakeholder. So I'm not going to demonstrate that because, like I said, there's a million different use cases for Domotz, and likely that's personal to each one. So, but it would be really easy. I could go back into Claude and I could say, you know, alerting is not relevant for this customer, remove that, but they do want to see, I don't know, printer or something, or overall download upload over time. I don't know. There's different metrics you could have that you could share. Configuration management. I don't know. There's a bunch of options, and you could have this back and forth until you get that template to a place where you feel, yes, this is in a really good place. I feel good about sending this to my customers as long as their data is put into that system. One thing that you'll also want to do in the back and forth as you arrive at a quality template is customize it with your brand. And so at Domotz, we have this document here that kind of outlines our brand, and it has our primary colors, and it has some information about the typography, the font, the sizes, the spacing, etc. Side note, this report was created with AI as well, but it'd be good to create one for your own brand as well. And then what I did is when I was going back and forth with Claude about the template, I added in a line item which said, the template's fine, but I want it to be in my brand. So I need you to I just pasted in this document, attach this document, and I said, take the design outlines and style guide that I provided here and apply it to the template. And it took the initial template and created, let me get rid of this, and created this. Oh, you can see in the back, it just finished the report from the first command that I sent. Anyway, so it created this. And now I'm like, okay, this is looking a lot better because this looks like Domotz. This is our branding. This is our style. This is our color. And even up to this point, we've gotten farther than you would with the native Domotz reporting, with the custom reporting with like Power BI. This is now your own report. It can have your logo on. I just use Domotz logo because that's what we have, but insert whatever logo you use here, whatever colors you use, etc. So this just took the report template that I had, that it kind of one-shotted built, and applied my branding to it. But again, you would spend time customizing what metrics are really important for your customers and make sure that it's showing in the template here. Okay, so let's say we arrive at a good spot with this template. You're at a place now where you're like, I'm happy with the template. Now what do you do? What you can't do, or what you want to avoid doing, is saying, okay, I'm going to every month open up my LLM and I'm going to attach this template and I'm going to say, pull it for this customer, and then do it again times however many customers you have or however many unique sites that you want to create a report for. That's also not very scalable, and there's a better way. So this is where you would want to transition to a solution like Claude Code or Codex if you're using OpenAI solutions, because it can go beyond kind of this conversation-based way of working, and instead go into a place where you can build a system with code and scripting to actually make this more autonomous and less kind of human in the loop. Because this could be fairly manual. If you have 30 sites, it's not a great system to start 30 conversations, one for each site, and attach the report to each and ask it to create the report and then export it and then import it into email. And then that's too much. That's too much of a manual process, and it doesn't have to be that way. So I'm going to open up Cursor, which is just, an IDE, a terminal that I can work out of. And even before I open this up, actually, so this is the template. It's in a good spot. So then I came back to Claude after I got to the template to the right place. Let's just assume that this template is at a perfect place. And I had a conversation with Claude where I said, okay, now that I have the template created, what I want to do now is I want to hand off this template to Claude Code or Codex or whatever solution you're using. And I want to create a system that will allow me to very easily, with very little manual involvement, create reports without having to do this manual process that I described of repeating it for every customer. So I asked Claude Desktop to create a prompt that I could supply to Claude Code to build this system, and this is what it created. So let's review it here. So this is kind of the thesis statement, which is we need to build a Claude Code project that generates the MSP network health reports for my customers. And all I have to do is do a / report, and then it should run this whole process autonomously. And then it provides some context. It references the template that I provided. It also outlines what it thinks the process should be. So in this case, it's saying the human is going to do / report. It's going to kick off this system that Claude Code is going to build, which the output of which is going to be a folder on my computer that's going to have the year and the month, which represents the year and month that the data in each one of the reports is going to contain. And it's going to paste the PDFs into that folder for each one of the customers that I've run the report for. And then it provides some information on what are the tools that you need to call based on the metrics that we have in the template, and then some information on the design, which is all relevant to the template that we created as well. And then the structure of the folder of the project and things like that. I'm not going to go into in a lot of detail because this is just basically relaying what we have in the template to Claude Code. So then I opened up Claude Code and I had a conversation where I just pasted this prompt in, and it worked for about 20 minutes. So I'm not going to live demo it because we don't want to just stare at Claude while it works for 20 minutes. And it built this whole system. So let me show you what the result of that was. So if I come in here now and I do / report, oops. If I click enter now, it's going to run this system that it built in that 20-minute time frame. And the output of that system is going to be, give me a second here. Let me pull up so this is the folder. You can see the files here, but this is just in a different view of it. So the output of it is going to be this reports folder. It created a new subfolder for May 2026. And in this subfolder is the 3 PDFs for the 3 sites that I have online. And if I open up this PDF, you're going to see it produced this report for that month, the month of May, following the template I created. If I open up a different report, it's going to show different data relevant to that site, but the same template in the same time period. So if I came back here on July 1st and I opened up my Claude Code and I ran / report, it's going to intuitively know, okay, we're in July now. I need to create this report for June. And it's going to work in the background. And I'm going to open up this folder and it's going to show, it's going to have a new folder here that's going to say 2026-06. And in that folder is going to be each of the 3 reports for each one of my sites that has the data relevant for the month of June. Pretty cool. I mean, at this point, we have successfully built a custom report with our own branding, with the metrics that we care about. And to be honest, not a lot of human involvement. Like it takes some effort up front to build the system, but once the system's built, I'm just going / report, and it's doing this whole process behind the scenes with very little involvement from me. So I'm going to pause here for a second and see if anyone has any questions. And then I want to kind of explore probably my favorite part, which is like we've demonstrated something, but there's so many other ways you could take this as well. So I'm going to pause here for a second. If there's any other questions, put them in chat and I'm happy to address them. Can you see how this would benefit your customers, how you could arrive at a kind of a quality customer report via this method, which maybe is a little bit new and different than other methods that you've used before or that you're trying to use right now? I'm curious to get your feedback. And then I want to show another example because I took it a step further. But so let's talk through. Feel free to put in chat any comments that you have. But in the meantime, let me kind of share another way of thinking about this. So there is so much that you could do with this. And what I demonstrated today, I think, is fairly elementary from a customer reporting perspective, in the sense that, like, from where we are and where we've been, it's pretty sophisticated. But from where you could go, it's fairly elementary. There's so much more you could layer on to your custom reports, and so much more data and so much more personalization that you could really build something really cool. And let me give you some examples. So the first thing I would suggest is, I demonstrated this with Domotz MCP, but you should think about how you can expand this to include many more tools from your tech stack. And like I said at the beginning, if there are tools in your tech stack that don't have an MCP server, probably they're working on it, first of all. And if they're not, or if they don't have it available yet, you can integrate via API, and it takes a little bit more time to get the setup process right. But once you have it set up, again, you can make it fairly autonomous and less, very, very little human involvement. So I would think through, especially if I was an MSP, how do I integrate into this report information about the ticketing, like the service delivery arm of my business, the tickets we've received, the tickets that we've triaged and remediated, our mean time to resolution, our average time to first response, like that type of information could be super valuable as well in this type of report. I could also consider including some cybersecurity information. How many events did we investigate in the last month? How many remediations did we perform? How many hosts did we isolate? How many emails did we quarantine? Like, there's a bunch of different metrics that you could include in this as well. And if I'm the business owner and I'm getting this report on a monthly basis and I'm seeing all these things, there's no doubt in my mind that behind the scenes, I might not be talking to the IT team a lot, but they're working. Like, there's a lot of work happening, and you become a lot stickier and show your value quite a bit more by saying, look at all this process that we have in the background. Like, this is all working for you. And it almost becomes like they can't churn. I mean, they have all of these processes built in the background that they need to sustain. And you're demonstrating that very clearly with this report. So I kind of went back and forth about including some of that information, and arrived at this report. First of all, I thought 4 pages is too long, especially from an executive reading it. They don't want to read 4 pages. So I said, let's shorten it to 2, and let's add in some information about my service delivery arm and cybersecurity. So I've changed some of the metrics here as well. So you can see the headline here is still related to network monitoring and performance, but the executive summary references not just the network performance, but also talks through our support team and the tickets we've resolved. It also talks through cybersecurity information, and that's also reflected here below. So you can see here, I've got a short summary on, okay, in the last month, we received 12 tickets from your team. Our average time to resolve the ticket was 4 hours. Our average time to the first response was 12 minutes, and the top category was network connectivity, for example. Same with cybersecurity. This is fairly elementary. You could get much more sophisticated in what you're showing, but again, it really depends on who your audience is and what's relevant to them. So I could say, hey, we've identified, this number of events. These 47 of them were signaled to our team for investigation, and 3 of them were remediated, et cetera. And then we have some additional information, which we're pulling from Domotz here about the network performance and devices. And then we have the summation here at the bottom, which demonstrates the value during this period. The more data and the more tools you integrate into this process, it multiplies the value every time. I mean, obviously you have to spend some time to make sure it's formatted in a way that makes sense, that arriving at that template report, the report template is crucial in getting to a place where, yes, this is formatted in a way that's relevant to my customers. But once you get there, it can be super, super valuable. So if I were in this position, I would say, great, this is awesome that I can do /report and I have all these PDFs. But what I would recommend to make it even more efficient would be setting up some sort of routine or cron job to automatically generate those reports every month. So I don't even have to do /report. And then you could take it even a step further. And this is real next level thinking, because let's say I have 30 sites that I'm monitoring. The output of this is 30 PDFs on my local machine. I still have to go in, and if I'm sending it over email, I still have to go in and create 30 emails and attach those reports. So I would take it even a step further. and I would connect if you're a Microsoft shop, I would connect to the Microsoft Graph API, and I would integrate that into my Claude Code script, where I would say, once the PDFs are exported into that folder, I want you to take those PDFs from that local folder, create a draft in my Microsoft Outlook inbox, and attach the PDF to each one of those emails. So now I don't have to do that myself. I can just open up my email, and on the first of the month or second of the month or whenever I program it to be, I can look in my draft folder, and I now have 30 email drafts with each one of them having the PDF attached. And to be honest, you could take it a step further and say also personalize the subject line and the body. And if you have it connected to something like your PSA or documentation or whatever, you could even add in the user, the recipient that it's relevant to. Then all I have to do is go and click send. And in theory, you could also have it send the email, but that's where you'd want to probably be a little careful, because this is like communication to customer, and you probably want a human in the loop to review that. So, so that is kind of that's when I was saying it can get so much more sophisticated. And what I've shown today is fairly elementary. That's kind of the vision of what I would say is, how do you take it from just data via an API all the way to every month this is automatically producing custom reports across, let's just say, 6 to 12 different pieces of tech in your tech stack, putting them in my Microsoft draft folder with the right recipient, with personalized subject line and a personalized body in the PDF, and ship it. And then all I have to do is go click send 30 times. That eliminates the manual process significantly. And then you can kind of get the vision of really what this can become, which I think is super cool. So that's kind of the idea of custom reporting. There's obviously a lot of different ways you could take this, but I hope I did a good job in showing you kind of what's possible. And really, what I really want to encourage you to do, like my call to action for you, your homework for today, is to pick a problem. Like, again, it goes all the way back to what I was saying at the beginning. Using AI to use AI is helpful in the sense that you can it gives you ideas of what to solve, but pick a problem, and custom reporting is a good one. But there's a million other problems, I'm sure, and you know that better than I do, that you can identify and then have a conversation with Claude about how the best way is to use AI to reach some sort of outcome, whether that's being more efficient, reducing tedious work. The best example I always think of is when Sunday night hits and you're thinking about work on Monday, and you have the Sunday scaries and you're thinking about that one task that you really don't want to do, start with that one. Like, that's the perfect task to start with, to integrate AI and to make it a little bit easier. And you'll find that it's very possible. So let me see if there's any questions that I came in while I was rambling here. So does Domotz have open API so our MCP can query? Yes, we do. But it goes back to what I was saying before, which is, oops, I disappeared. You can integrate the API, and that can work as a solution, but it's always going to be better and more efficient for your token usage of your LLM to integrate via the MCP server that the vendor provides than it is to build your own. You certainly can. I built my own MCP server for Domotz before we had our own, and it was very inefficient in its token usage. And our engineering team has put a lot of effort in to make it as efficient as possible, and it is much more efficient on token usage. So yes, you can do that if you're passionate about it. No one's going to stop you. We have our open API. It's very well documented, and you can integrate those endpoints, or you can just connect via our like production MCP server, and it's going to be a bit more efficient for you. Are you publishing any starters/templates on GitHub or anything? We do. We have published some information on GitHub. I'll see if I can find that while I answer some more questions. But I also recommend, once you connect the Domotz MCP server, having a conversation with Claude about it. Like, the best, people often get, like I said at the beginning, people often get paralyzed once they start working in AI. Like, they don't start working in AI because they're paralyzed at the thought of it. You just have to start. Like, you just have to start, open up whatever LLM you're using, have a conversation, and you'll start getting a lot of ideas. But we do have some pre-built kind of ideas to start with. So let me see if I can find, give me 1 second. Here we go. So Destiny is on our team here, and she created this GitHub repository, which has some starter prompts to start thinking about. Okay, I'd like to have a report on some custom drivers that I have made for the FortiGate SD-WAN SLAs, but can't get it to report on anything. Is there a list of what's currently possible? Yes, there is. And you can come into, let me screen share and show you this. So if I go back into here and I show the connectors here, this is what shows everything that's possible via the MCP server. And so I don't know if I can specifically answer your question about the, oh yeah, custom drivers. So yes. So we have in our MCP tooling the ability to query, not just query, but also create custom scripts and custom drivers and custom sensors and all of that. So you should be able to do that. Yes. And this is a great question that also that you could connect to the Domotz MCP and ask the MCP. We're also, our vision for the MCP is to surface as much actions as you can do in product via the web application, via the MCP, because our vision for the future is that a lot of people are going to adopt this new way of working and start working more in AI agents and local LLMs, and the MCP, rather than there's kind of a few options. You could layer AI into your product, but at that point, it's kind of within these confines of the product, versus if you layer it into the LLM via an MCP server, the world's your oyster. Like you can integrate with as many other tools as you want, which is I think where the real power is, rather than just having it locked inside of a product. Yes, this comment, I like this comment. Everything's possible. However you like it, just depends how you like it. Destiny has a morning Domotz morning run that creates a daily report. That is included in the GitHub link that I shared. So this is a good prompt where, you have a lot going on. You have a lot of tools that you're checking and managing. Destiny created this prompt in her GitHub that I shared, which sends you a report every morning of like, what do you actually need to focus on? Like, don't just have to scour through the web portal to find it. It's going to identify what you should have eyes on for that day from a network monitoring perspective. I mentioned this at the beginning, but we are recording this. It's on the Domotz YouTube channel. It'll be live immediately at the conclusion of the webinar. You can go and watch it there. Okay. I don't have any other questions. No other questions are coming through. I'll hang out for a little bit. I have nothing else going on. I'd love to talk to you all if you have any questions. Otherwise, I just circle back to what my recommendation was, which is just stop thinking about it, just open it, start querying. There's a real wow moment and we can keep showing it, but it's going to happen on your own time as you explore it. What about exposing these not exposed on the last change, blah, 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 status change? Okay. Not sure exactly what you're asking, Jason. Maybe I missed the first part of your question somewhere higher up. But we can report on time series events. So if you're looking, it seems like you're alluding to that in your comment, we can definitely do that. The other thing I should mention as well is there's an audit log in the product. So as you make changes via the MCP server, the MCP server is tied to your unique user. You as a user authenticate the MCP individually. And if you want to see some change that someone made, it's all it's all shown in the audit logs in the product as well. What's in the pipeline for the MCP? I love that question. We have, like I said in what I was just kind of alluding to, which is our vision is to expose more and more tooling via the MCP server. One thing I'll say is we're looking for this type of feedback on what's missing. So as you start playing around with it and you are identifying, hey, it'd be really cool if we had this additional functionality or this additional tooling via the MCP that we don't have today, let us know, because we want to continue to build it out, but we want to make sure it's tied to the use cases that matter to you. And I also say, shameless plug, in July, we have our product webinar where we're going to review a lot of the new releases that we have, such as well, it's happening this week, but we have like a new custom drivers coming out. We have unified alerts, which is a whole new alerting system we've built, the MCP development. There's probably 4 or 5 other things that we'll cover. But part of that will be our MCP development and the roadmap for it as well. Okay. Oh, he's talking about API items that may not be on the MCP. Yeah. We have tried, hold on. We tried to replicate all the public API. I thought we did replicate all the public API endpoints into the MCP, but if there's items that are missing from that, again, let us know, and we would love to make sure we're giving you everything you need to be successful. What else? Am I missing anything here? Anything else? Or we'll wrap up here. As always, if you have questions that come to you later, there's a few places that you can ask them. One is our Reddit channel, the Domotz subreddit, and we always monitor that for your questions. So if there's something I missed or something that comes up later or a request that you have, feel free to put it there, or you can always email support@domotz.com. If you're not a Domotz user as well, the MCP is available for trial users as well. So if you want to experiment with this new way of working, feel free to kick off a trial and play around with it. And if you've had a trial previously and it's expired, let us know. Email support@domotz.com. We can get that extended for you to make sure that you can test out this new functionality since you tried it last time. Okay, with that said, I'm going to wrap it up. Appreciate you all for coming. Would love to hear from you. Hit me up on LinkedIn or on the Domotz subreddit or support, and we'd love to continue the conversation and continue to have your feedback. I hope this was valuable. Custom reporting again is huge. It's a huge thing, and it's huge in a few ways. Huge in that it can provide a lot of value. Huge in that it's probably something that's probably fairly manual in your existing workflow. And I think we've demonstrated a new way of building that today that will make it a lot more efficient, a lot more personalized, a lot more scalable, a lot more automated, and a lot more impactful to demonstrate your value. So with that said, thank you all for being here. Don't be strangers. Let us know how we're doing. Let us know if there's anything else we can do for you, and we'll see you next time. Bye.